Good evening. Welcome to the official Fatal Vision podcast. I'm your host, James McGinnis, and with me is our co-host, Mr. Billy Lidden, with the microphone. You can see it through the camera right now. You can't see it at home, but he's got himself a state-of-the-art $25,000 studio microphone. Billy, speak up.
Hey James, good to be
Oh,
here with you. Yeah,
oh
Chris.
man, that is. That is right off the Paramount lot. Yeah, you can tell that is what they use on the Conan O'Brien show, probably, right? Or one of those famous late night shows.
It's like when Bruce broke up the E Street Band and went to LA for the slick
Yeah,
LA sound.
right. Just the most expensive, the fanciest, the most state-of-the-art equipment. That's what we're known for here at the Fatal Vision podcast. Just the opulence and conspicuous consumption.
Hey man, I'm just glad to be off the road. I was traveling this weekend. Actually, I saw you.
Yeah, this is going to be hard for our viewers and listeners to believe, but Billy and I were in the same room at one point over the last few days. So that's pretty
Yeah.
neat. It's a
Yeah,
very
we
rare
were
occurrence.
we were at a wedding together, and that was quite a night.
It was quite a night. It's quite a night, and we didn't get a chance to talk about the podcast because it was a mixed company. But you know, we were always thinking of it. We're thinking
I,
of
I
you.
did I did tell our friend Sam about it after James.
Oh,
You had to leave to bring Stella home, your
yeah, she was
beautiful little
tired.
girl. Yeah, I told our friend Sam about it, and he was like, "Oh, I didn't know you guys were doing that."
Yeah, that's about what I'd expect from him. Just complete disinterest. And did he, probably was he mad?
No, I just think it's worth noting that, before the lawsuits begin, that Sam did have the idea first of doing a podcast with you back in 2016, and
Right.
he wanted me to remember that.
Did he actually say he brought that up?
Yeah, he took my idea though.
Wait, so you first you said, "Oh, I didn't know you were doing that," but then he did go on to challenge you about how I betrayed him and that you betrayed him.
He didn't use that word, but he did want it to be known to
I want
those who
I
were listening.
I was going to do a podcast with James. Is that what he said?
Yeah,
Oh,
but
I
you,
think
you guys, you guys had creative differences.
I mean, that's sort of kind of um as far as podcasting goes, you have to have a very established shared interest to even want to grow a podcast. You can't just decide that we sound great talking. People think we're fucking funny. So let's just try to figure out something to talk about. We've been working on this Fatal Vision. So we've been working on the podcast for, 10 years. Just didn't know it. It's all this Fatal
Yeah.
Vision talk. So I do apologize to Sam, and the lawsuits are flying. And
I want to give a shout out to our other friend, Nick Lawson, who called me 2 days ago and I told him about the podcast and he asked me to walk him through all the evidence against MacDonald for about 10, 15 minutes on the phone, and he just listened intently, and I felt so good.
I'm glad, Nick. I know you're going to be listening to this too, and but for the millions of people that are listening who don't know Nick, I think Nick is a great guy. I think Sam's a great guy, and the only reason we've ever reached the heights that we have is because of friends like them. And that doesn't mean they get any of the money, but their gratitude, I am grateful for it. But
Yeah,
the
I
the,
am.
the, the
I
money
am
is
too.
insane. Just stupid amounts of money for just doing basically nothing.
Dumb, dumb
Dumb
money.
money. Just sitting here and dumb money is just crushing me. I can't breathe.
Yep. Yep.
So I hope you,
Stacking.
yeah, I hope the friends of the McGinnis Glidden pod will put up with a little bit of the the housekeeping we're talking about. It's pretty vital. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you got to know who your podcast, you got to know who your hosts are.
Mm-hmm. It's very important. And for next week's episode, we might have a surprise.
Surprise guest,
We've
special guest.
been working real hard to make it happen, but we've been in talks with James Blackburn. Uh,
Geez, you just ruined the surprise.
oh, we can just
But
cut that.
yeah, we'll have Corey in the control room. We'll just bleep that out. Um, but um,
Yeah, sorry,
it's
guys.
it's not a sure thing by no means. The talks were going really well, and then they just sort of stopped. So we don't know where we stand. So
Yeah.
God willing, we'll have a really special episode next week, but we might have to wait another week. But
Well, and God knows we both have a track record of being extremely offensive and polarizing without meaning to be.
yeah,
And so,
99% of people hate me, like to the point of like wishing to murder, but 1% absolutely love and adore me, and there's no middle ground. And I think I think Billy's ratio is more like 50-50. So that's good for him. But we
yeah,
might, yeah,
so it is possible that we've burnt that bridge.
without even knowing, just the sound of one's voice, the cadence, the choice of words is enough to send someone spiraling away forever. It's been my experience.
Yeah, yeah, I have a lot of dear friends, people that I thought were my best friends, who haven't spoken to me in years. So,
Yeah, and even people that have come into my life and assumed the role of best friend, and then obviously rotated out into nothing. Admitted that they hated me when they first met me. Um, so like the first impression is always like basically terrible. And I've never had any control over that.
I feel like a lot of that depends on whether you're wearing a pink polo with the collar popped. If we're
Oh,
looking at your part,
oh, this goes back way before that. And
yeah,
pink is a very legitimate color. I'm not going to get into that, but you're probably right. It's something McDonald would probably wear in his
100%.
heights. I've never been known to be draped in gold jewels. Um, in my defense,
Well, speaking of McDonald, this week we get to spend some time with him.
yeah, he's going to take over the narrative again.
Hmm.
Um, you know, Joe was doing a lot of heavy lifting with his prose, and now we get to see what Joe excised from the McDonald tapes and presented strategically here on page 70 of your
I don't
2012
know if
edition
excise the word. Maybe
as a fait accompli.
we'll have to look that up. We'll put the definition of excise
Excised.
in the episode description.
Yeah, I think you'll find they'll send it to you. It'll be part of your welcome packet.
Are we still sending out welcome packets?
Well, not hard copies anymore. We used to do these in person um team builders where it was catered. There'd be like food from the deli down the street and like cookies from Panera and with budget cuts it's all virtual now. So there's no it's like just a Google Doc now, the welcome packet. And you get invited, but then you have to be people are trusted not to make changes because then it ruins it for everybody.
Okay, got it.
Billy's just looking at Billy's just looking at me like, "Are you done with this stupid riff?" Because sometimes you're on and sometimes you're not on, and this is all gonna go in the can. This whole episode might not even get aired at this point, but we're doing our duty. It's our Christian duty, and we're on our way.
Yep. I'm gonna kick this off. You usually go first. I think I should go
I,
first this
I had
time.
no idea that I was going first, and we'll have to take that offline because I was never intended that to happen.
Yeah,
Go
it's
ahead,
okay.
Bill. Go
I
ahead.
prefer
You can read the whole fucking chapter.
no, man. No, no, come on. Come on. Let's not look, we had a fight earlier over text about politics. We don't have to
About
bring it
some,
onto the
yeah.
podcast. All
Was
right.
not about politics at all. It's about some scholar.
The historian at Harvard who's
Okay,
very
right.
smart.
Okay, Harvard. Yeah. But now we're gonna get back to Princeton, which is even better. So you take it away, Bill.
Through that year, now this is the voice of Jeffrey MacDonald. Through that year, my freshman year at Princeton, Colette clearly became the love of my life. There was no question about it. That was the year our love flowered. I remember your heart would just leap into your throat at a phone call or when you'd see her return address on a letter and you would joyously finish school on a Friday at noon and start hitchhiking or taking the bus up to Skidmore.
Love the switch to second person there.
Yeah. It was an enormously exciting time, but it was also a delicate time because Colette was not at all like my prior girlfriends. Oh, yes, important
So
to,
so many,
yeah,
35 at
order
least.
to bring them in.
Yeah.
She was very delightful and warm, but yet she had this little bit of aloofness about her, which some people took to mean snottiness. But it was never that. It wasn't that at all. If anything, it was timidity on her part. As I got to know her well and we fell in love and whatnot, I realized that it wasn't from a real aloofness, but more from a hesitancy and a slight fear of the world in general. Basically, she was a very shy person without too much self-confidence. She did not at all have the sort of widespread contact that I enjoyed, or my brother or my sister enjoyed. And she kind of leaned on my self-confidence, and that was part of our relationship. She liked my leadership, and I liked her vulnerability and femininity.
Interesting that he was aware at this point of how he'd been psychologically profiled so ruthlessly by various people through the grand jury and through the trial or whatever, all over. And then he's just like right back at it here, just absolutely laying it all out and just banging the drum over and over. I'm the hyper masculine Superman. And I was such a leader, and I enjoy widespread contact. And she was just so timid, so weak, and I love that
Feminine,
about her.
vulnerable.
Vulnerable. People thought she was snotty, but she was just she had a fear of the world in general. So she was driven by a thousand forms of fear.
Hmm.
Mhm.
You can go.
Okay, some seems like some more complimentary things are coming in. She was always questioning and bright and intuitive and alert, but she had this sort of an underlying anxiety at all times, very soft and feminine and attractive in a way. And it was nice sort of to be her boyfriend and her protector. we were writing each other constantly. I remember I wrote her a long poem, several pages in length, and she thought it was extremely romantic. I think probably in retrospect, it was one of the worst things ever written. It was terrible. It was very sophomoric, but I remember that she kept it in. It was, a sophomoric thing to do, but we were young and in love.
Okay, connect this to the earlier voice of Jeffrey MacDonald.
Yeah.
Anything cute, romantic, vulnerable on his part has to be immediately dismissed
So I
as
would never do
stupid
that
and
now. Would
sophomore.
never have
Yeah.
done it now. Never have done it now. It was so stupid. I can't believe I did that. Um, and like to write a poem is just like so weak and pathetic and feminine. Um, all right, so that just lines up with the other voices. So he's very good to making sure he's not a poet, doesn't want to be a poet. He did this. He made a one mistake once. Um, I was very active in my pursuit. It was okay for me to go to New York and possibly pick up a girl, or even have Penny Wells down on a weekend, but it wasn't special anymore. There was nothing neat about that. That specialness was Colette. So, he had the whole city of New York at his command, and but he didn't want any of them anymore. She said she had occasional other dates, and I think that's true. As a matter of fact, I remember one specific weekend during the winter, I called her and she apologized. I was going to go up to see her on short notice, and she apologized profusely because she had a blind date arranged by her roommate. The blind date came over from Dartmouth for the weekend, and I remember spending the whole time kind of jealous and angry and hurt and waiting all through the week for a letter, which I got about Friday of the following week, in which she said the weekend was a bust. Whether that was a transparent lie or not, it certainly lifted my spirits. I remember like re-falling in love when I got the letter saying that her weekend with the blind date was a disaster. The guy from Dartmouth was a quote animal unquote, which is what we all kidded everyone from Dartmouth about being. Section break. Kick it over to you, Bill.
I remember Thanksgiving of that freshman year. Colette was not going to come down, which seemed very strange, and she told me that it was because of funds. She didn't have the funds to come down. And I remember thinking how weird that was with Freddie and Mildred living in such, supposed splendor in Greenwich Village. And I know this sounds ridiculous and self-serving, but it's not. I sent her something like $30 or $40 for her bus ticket down to New York. Now, I know it sounds ridiculous, but I remember writing to her and sending her either like two $20 bills or a $40 check and told her, don't be absurd, come down for Thanksgiving. It would be very lonely for you to be up there at Skidmore. And I remember her calling me and thanking me, and then she invited me in. Now, I wasn't there the whole weekend. I don't remember exactly how long, but I stayed overnight at the apartment in Greenwich Village on Washington Square. And the things that I remember most were two things. I was just in that area tonight, actually, James.
Wow, that's eerie, but yeah, the hairs in the back of my neck, they just fucking stood up when you said
Yeah,
that, man. Yeah.
yeah. One was the
Uh,
walk through the village. Oh, you have something?
just that he thought he was being ridiculous for being generous and kind to send her money to get home. So ridiculous, so stupid, pathetic.
One was the walk through the village because it was one of those beautiful fall days and we were holding hands and we were very much in love. And we stopped at an outdoor cafe and we went through the park at the end of Fifth Avenue and watched the organ grinders and the people at the time when there were a lot of guitar players. And we thought, that Greenwich Village was super, that it was neat and artsy, craftsy, et cetera, et cetera. And we had a very like lovely day.
Okay, hold on. Well, that was like a real breakdown there, right? Like he really lost his. eloquence there. He couldn't really get through that
A lot of
scene.
like
Yeah, he just like he's like, yeah, we were walking. Oh my God, I don't know what to say. This artsy crafty things. All right, sorry to interrupt.
I also remember that night, the nice dinner we had at Freddie and Mildred's apartment. Mildred was a good cook, and the dinners were always a little more formal than I was used to at my house. My house was very casual. At Mildred's, everyone sat in certain places and you stood behind a chair until the table was all ready to go. And then we all sat down and certain ceremony was always performed with the wine and it was much more formal. We kind of enjoyed it. Colette and I were learning from it and it seemed very chic, although we used to occasionally make light of it and think that Freddie and Mildred were blowhards about it, that they were a little pretentious. But the other thing I remember about that night is when Mildred and Freddie went to bed, Colette and I sat up. I was sleeping on the couch in the living room. It was a long, I believe, green couch, which they'd had for a long time. It was a very expensive couch. Colette had set up the bed, set up the sheet and the pillowcases and the pillow and blanket and stuff. And we were sitting out there talking and we began kissing and making out, as it were. Um, and Colette got a little flustered and said that she really shouldn't be doing this at home. I'll pass it to you there.
Okay, yeah. So this is a lot of and ah coming in through this last page, and I'm wondering if this is later going to be revealed to be all bullshit, just based on the amount of draining he seems to be doing to remember. Like, this is an expensive green couch. Um, she didn't want Freddie walking out or Mildred walking out, and I said fine, and she went to bed. And I remember it was very strange because this was a little atypical of Colette. She came out about 20 minutes later and lay down on the couch with me very quietly and a little apprehensively, and we began kissing and caressing each other. We ended up making love, and I remember it was one of those exquisite times where we were trying to be so incredibly quiet, and it was one of those times that Colette, it was sort of the excitement of doing something, I guess, that we shouldn't have been doing, and in a place where we shouldn't have been doing it, and the threat of Mildred and Freddie walking out at any moment, but it was more exciting than even usual. And she was sort of like giving herself to me by coming out of her room and getting into bed with me. And it was the first time that this had ever really happened because we had just recently begun making love, and it was a incredible, very exciting session. We talked about this for years afterwards, in fact, as one of our most memorable lovemaking sessions. It's the level of, as the kids would say, the cringe is off the charts here.
Well, they're in college,
Yeah,
so he's gonna murder her in
a
just a
couple,
few years. Yeah.
yeah, just a few short years. Um, yeah, and he's just sitting in prison narrating all this. Was it Harlequin type stuff? The surrendering, the giving of oneself to another. We never really, excuse me, we never openly discussed whether she or I had slept with anybody else. She always avoided the subject of Penny Wells. She was not really jealous of Penny. She always felt like unthreatened by her, but she didn't see any need to discuss it. I think she wondered what the attraction was between Penny and I, but we never talked about it. I never told her that we'd had a tremendous physical thing going, and we never discussed it. We sort of avoided those topics. So we said like 10 times that she didn't care about Penny.
Yeah. Yeah. I also, as look, he said between Penny and I, and any sophisticated uh speaker of the English language, somebody as learned as MacDonald would know that it should be between Penny and me.
Oh, yeah, so just so our viewers know, Billy is like kind of a grammar master. He can't. He even has grammatical peeves about things that aren't even technically wrong, like myriad of. He's,
Oh, yeah, I don't like myriad of.
but yeah, even though that's technically in the, like passes.
But I go through life hearing the language spoken a certain way, seeing things in writing. I don't feel very judgmental about any of it. We all have our weird things, but seeing a guy like McDonald make an error
Well,
feels
I mean,
feels
it's
pretty good.
also it's a spoken error too, and I mean the previous paragraph was all one sentence run on. So I mean, it's a different standard, probably. I
Yeah,
don't
but
know.
between Penny and I
Yeah,
is egregious.
yeah. I mean, I think what we're seeing is like a general breakdown of his ability to speak when he's narrating a lot of this, which I believe almost all of this chapter is going to end up being total bullshit, if I'm not mistaken. So he's just sort of like trying to conjure. He's sort of like writing it as he's going. We did talk about her feelings. Excuse me, Billy. You should take this up here.
Oh man, I appreciate that. We did
Yeah.
talk about her feelings for Dean, never about potential love making with Dean. I'm
Seems
not
like this.
sure
He's brought this up before
he's
a lot.
obsessed
Yeah.
with it. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is probably a different tape.
Yeah.
He's coming back to it. Never about potential lovemaking with Dean. I'm not sure if she made love with Dean Chamberlain or not. My strong impression is that she didn't. She always implied that in conversation. We never talked. I never said to her, "Were you a virgin?" I never said to her, "Did you ever make love to Dean Chamberlain?" It always seemed like sort of a too jealous thing to ask and too immature, and we always tried to respect each other more than that. She never, for instance, said to me, "Did you make love with Penny Wells?" I think we tried to be honest with each other, and so we skirted that type of question.
He like almost admitted that he had a like an actual feeling of jealousy or some sort of failing and was able to talk himself through it. It's like, no, it was just about our mutual respect for one another. But I mean, here I am, 15, at this point, 15 years later, just like, did she? I don't think she did. I'm pretty sure she didn't. She might have, but I don't think she did.
Yeah, it would have been cool if the Dean Chamberlain figure read Fatal Vision and then reached out to him to
Yeah, I'm pretty
confirm
sure
or
I
deny.
found Dean Chamberlain on Facebook, so we can probably invite him on soon too.
This
But this
isn't a
is,
fake name.
it's not a fake name, it's a real name.
And the Dean you found on Facebook is the
Patchogue, through and through.
Patchogue, the right name. Oh man.
Yeah, yeah.
That could be some big news for us to break, whether Colette was a virgin.
Wow, I'm just the idea that this might ever be heard by other people is just absolutely destroying me. But yeah, that would be breaking news. And I think what would be exciting is that we could actually break it to Jeffrey MacDonald today. He's still,
He's
I would tap.
definitely
He's
he's
still thinking
definitely
about it.
thinking about it.
It's 11:15 in the East on August 14th, 2024. He's in Maryland right now thinking about whether Dean made love with Colette in 1960s something. And we will get to the bottom of it, and we will send him the tape. Uh,
We're just kidding.
yeah,
We did make love in some wild places, though. Okay, good, good. I'm glad he's back to his
in
old
much
ways.
much more comfortable territory.
I remember one, see, all the ums and ahs go away
Yeah,
here.
that yeah. Now he's flying high.
I remember one Saturday morning I was up seeing her. As a matter of fact, I believe it was Happy Pappy weekend at Skidmore, and Freddie Kassab did not go up. I went up. I believe this episode was Happy Pappy Weekend. I may be incorrect. Happy Pappy Weekend possibly was during the winter. But in any case, on Saturday morning, it may have been a later weekend in the spring because it was warm. She took me out to the Saratoga racetrack. They were either not running or the horses were running later in the day, but there were workouts going on at the track. In other words, there were grooms working horses, and I remember there were, oh, probably 50 or 100 people wandering around the stands, and there were people cleaning up. There were people mowing the lawn and doing the hedges and stuff like that. So the horses must have been in session. Go
Oh,
ahead.
we even got a stuff like that. That's epic. Um, just the level of detail, because this one I know is fake. So I'm really enjoying it.
You got it.
Oh, so anyway, yeah, and well, as Joe knows personally, and I know personally, the racetrack's open in August. It's not going to be happening during Happy Pappy weekend or anytime Skidmore's in session. Anyway, so this is all completely made up. And Colette and I were walking in the infield carrying a blanket, and I just love how hard he's thinking of, this shows credible. He's, he's willing to try, he's trying to nail the details right. I believe lunch, and we ended up making love under the blanket in broad daylight, very slowly and gently. We thought, of course, being very secretive and no one could possibly see us, but I'm sure anyone who passed within 200 yards of us could have seen that we were making love. And I remember that summer, one night, we went down to a park in Patchogue. We were watching a big softball game. I was playing on some softball leagues, and Colette used to love to come and watch me play. But this was not one of my games. This was like in single A league game. These guys eventually went to the Jones Beach World Tournament. But we went down to watch and got bored around the third or fourth inning, and we walked out into the outfield behind the fence. And we eventually ended up making love under our blanket while the game was going on. Just one out of the arc lights, just at the fringe of the lights. And I remember thinking what an adventure it was, and Colette felt the same way. Here we were making love only 400 feet from this whole crowd of people watching this big softball game.
End of chapter.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
note a common thing he does here at the end, where he tells us what Colette was feeling about something.
yeah. And it happened to be exactly what he was feeling.
Yeah.
Um,
When they
we,
first made love several
yeah,
chapters ago and she wept, he knew exactly why.
yeah,
She was so moved. She was so happy.
right. And um, so he sort of just ping-ponged and he was generous enough to get her back to Thanksgiving, and then they did it on the couch. And then were we virgins? Well, obviously not me. Maybe she was, but almost certainly she was, but maybe she wasn't. But anyway, and then he just like launches into these two um absurd sort of chat GPT fantasies of,
Hmm.
anybody could have seen that. Anybody within 200 yards would have known.
Yeah, and they were all blown away by it.
Yeah, they were just like, we're not going to get involved. We're not going to call the police. It's just so awesome. It's J-Mac at doing his thing. Um,
That's what he
400,
does.
yeah, he loves to have lovemaking sessions, and um, so did his gal, and the whole chapter is centered around the exhibitionist streak of like getting caught or being on the being the turn on he was getting from the idea of getting they could be caught and busted first by her parents and then by like 1,000 people at once.
Right.
So I wonder
Right.
what
And how, and actually
yeah,
how Colette, through her relationship with him, is becoming more and more sexually liberated.
right, because she was like there was like 30 different ways of describing her timidity and her fear
Uh-huh.
and
And
now
now she's
she's like
bringing him to Saratoga.
yeah, leading him under the there's like gardeners everywhere, like hedges are being trimmed, like it's constant. And then just we did it just like literally like the light fringe, and then we were right there. So yeah, he's sort of he is the super masculine ideal, no question.
Yeah. But do you think that Colette made love to Dean Chamberlain?
Sure sounds like he um needs to get to a place where that didn't happen. Like it's
Because I
like
mean he's bringing it up all throughout the book.
yeah, it's like really an absolutely crazy thing to be talking about. And then the last chapter, he was like Dean was just a jerk. Everybody hated Dean.
It's just not what one should be thinking about.
Yeah,
How
like we're not talking about some guy just remembering his life, you know. This is a guy remembering of someone that you say was murdered like 2 feet away from you by home invaders less than 10 years ago. And you're just like, did she have sex with Dean? I think she did. I'm almost no, there's no way she did.
anyway.
Um, anyway, so there's some yeah, so then of course we can invite the fictional MacDonald defender in here and be like, hey man, you're not trauma informed. You don't know how you would react to, being the victim of a violent crime in your own home and losing your whole family. There's no accounting for that.
A lot of guys experience jealousy. A lot of guys are sexually insecure and have to build themselves up.
Well, yeah, of course. Yeah, it's a human trait, but it's just the context that this is all when you're reading the McDonald chapters or his recounting of Colette, there's no um sense of sadness around the fact that he knows where it's going to her brutal death and his living without her. It's all so that's what's striking.
Okay, the McDonald defender though would say we don't know what prompting McGinnis was giving McDonald in inviting this tape.
Oh, I'm sure that we don't.
And that
But
maybe Joe was saying, tell us everything. Tell us
yeah,
every
no, I
first
don't
time
think
you
there's any.
guys
No,
had
I'm
sex.
sure. Yeah, but I'm sure you would. I just don't think that one would get through this tape and doing all these spiels about. Well, first of all, we're not even getting to the fact that a lot of this is just invented. Um,
True.
let's
True.
say the McDonald defender can put the McDonald defender on the shelf a second and say, okay, maybe this is all true. He's just remembering his life. I just have a hard time. It's just not credible, Billy.
Yeah, I want to say something about this. And we touched on this in an earlier episode, but at the time that McDonald is recording this tape, this monologue for Joe's benefit, he doesn't know that the book is going to be constructed around transcripts of these monologues. So he's thinking he's feeding Joe these beautiful, vivid, glorious scenes
Oh wow.
that Joe will then render
With his craft. So
journalistically.
this is the book that MacDonald wants us to be reading.
Yeah. He wants the journalistic professional writer scene of walking to the infield
This is
at
my
Saratoga.
authorized biography. Like my heart was pounding.
Yeah.
The love making sessions were exquisite.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Putting thoughts in Colette's head.
I'm just a mere surgeon. I'm doing the best I can, but Joe, with his pen, will bring this to life. And instead,
Yeah.
so he's just sort of caught red-handed trying to write himself into the hero's journey.
But then Joe's an actual journalist and he tries to verify what Jeff is
Yeah,
saying.
and we'll learn in the knifing chapters in the end that Dean was actually a pretty nice guy. Um, and at least one out of those three scenes could never have happened based on where she was and based
Wh-
on what we know about the racetrack and so on.
When do we learn about Dean?
It's all in the after trial chapters where Joe returns as a character and he just starts laying out, well, I guess this is what McDonald lied. Remember when McDonald said this? Well, this isn't true. This isn't true. She was here, in November. She never stayed at Skidmore. That never happened. That's just an example. So we'll get to that in a couple of years on the podcast. But if you ever care to jump ahead, it's somewhere in the probably part 6.
Ugh.
Anyway, it's
Well, and
yeah,
again, this is a chapter where Jeff is fully himself in everything is always fucking awesome. We made
yeah,
love in the field. It was so amazing and exquisite and tender. She was so free and we were so in love. Later, we'll get to the boxing team. Colette was so excited for me to go to Russia.
yeah. She loves his softball games too.
Yeah, he is always crushing it, no matter
Yeah,
what.
24/7. Um,
Well,
so we should just experience joy knowing that our boy here like found someone who fit all of his needs and he didn't have to settle for Penny or just some girl in New York that he picked up off the street.
yeah, Penny was much too dim.
She didn't fit in with the Ivy League crowd. She couldn't hold her own.
Didn't really understand Bob Dylan.
And then everybody in Pan, like and then I'm walking with Colette, and then it's just like artsy crafty stuff. It was very neat. Clearly, Donald is blown away with his own deep knowledge of the arts here in Greenwich Village and all the great burgeoning creative movements.
Yeah. All right, well, I think that's a good place.
Yeah, we got to call it.
Wrap
We, you know,
up.
Sad to report to everybody, Billy is no longer a work from home model. He's been forced back to the office by the grind set, as has happened to so many of us. And yeah, we're all heading back to our day jobs
Yeah,
tomorrow.
I'll be retired soon with the cast
This,
the
yeah, yeah.
podcast
Hopefully,
casting
yeah. I mean,
continuing.
we're putting all our eggs in this podcast basket, clearly. But we will get there. We will get there. God willing.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I work from 5 a.m. until 10 p.m. every night.
I just take 5 ice baths a day, and yeah. I mean, that's what else do you need to know about me? I'm an ice bath guy.
Yeah. Ice bath right when you wake up or after you get a workout in?
Well, yeah, but I think you sandwich the workout between two ice baths. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Did, did you see my LinkedIn post about returning to work?
Yeah. Yeah, I
The
liked
one,
it.
well, there was the other one where it shows me standing in a room and everyone's clapping, and
Hmm.
I have like a weird like Renaissance Jesus aura around me for some reason.
Yeah. Yep.
So fucked up.
I
Oh
like the
my,
one today with the bird.
yeah.
It's just such a like simpleton meditation. Like this sale didn't work. The sale didn't work out. And I looked out my window and I saw a bird flying by and I realized everything's okay.
I was trying to channel Finley or Thomas Merton, like turn and see a flock of birds descending,
And some
and
juniper trees.
yeah, into a grove, the darkness of the night. So I'm just trying to spread a little bit of mysticism in the B2B sales world on LinkedIn. And yeah, for all of our listeners, you can find me on all the socials at James McGinnis. Please follow, like, subscribe, donate.
Yeah. I'm thinking a post is in your future where you explain what Jeffrey MacDonald teaches us about B2B sales.
I don't see a like from you at all on this today's post, by the way, about the bird.
Oh, but I copied the link and I sent it to people.
Okay, offline. All right, that's cool.
I'll go give it a like, man.
If please, I need it for the algorithm. Um,
All right, man. All right, hey,
all right.
everybody. God bless.
Thanks for listening. It's a great night, and
Thank you. Thank you. What a
there's a
night.
lot more to come.
All right.